Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. I hope you got a lot out of Mr. Kinnear's presentation. It's definitely had a lot of very positive feedback about it over the years. I want to welcome everybody and thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. I definitely also like to acknowledge certain things as I come across them, and as I'm viewing the people that I have on the list of participants for this webinar. I have one person who seemingly looks to be viewing this from Japan. And if I look at that, that takes some pretty serious dedication, because based on my calculations, it looks like it's about 3 o'clock in the morning there. So I definitely want to welcome what looks to be our furthest reaching person for this webinar anyway. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Spangler. I'm the Flooring Division Manager here at Wagner. I am responsible for the Rapid RH concrete side of stuff. I'm also responsible for the smaller wood hand meters for wood flooring installations and wood subfloors. So basically, I'm very focused on just the flooring segment of the business. Before I go any further, keep in mind this is going to be a Q&A. I'll get through as many of the Q&As as possible. If you have any, please type them in now so that I can try to get to them. If there are ones that I don't get to, I'll respond to them via email after the session. And if there are any specific questions that you think of after the fact, my direct contact information is, for phone number is 800-634-9961, and its extension 235. So one of the things I'd like to point out is that you guys were able to view this current viewing that you had as an up-to-date, more modernized version as far as the platform goes for the computer, as far as viewing the webinar. So definitely something we're very proud to continue to kind of refine and improve the whole webinar. So any feedback that you have about it would be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, I'll move on to some questions. Looks like I have one that says, on the calcium chloride versus actual emission graph, on the 4 data points that should have been 0 but had readings, how did you account for error on placement of the kits? First of all, I'm going to tell you absolutely that we, as Wagner, did not place those kits. All of that information was stuff that was either done specifically by CTL or was done and compiled by Howard for this webinar. What I can tell you is that much of that information, not all, but much of that information, was done based off of physical laboratory settings, and that many of them, as they look at it from an error of the placement of the kits, I think most of it you would see a consistency in the again, my opinion, but you would see a consistency of that because usually it's the same person doing it. So I have to say, bottom line is that I can't specifically answer that question, but I appreciate the question. Next question that I had was, how can we reference this video in the future? Joseph, I'll actually send you, a link that'll show you a bunch of individual snippets of this. But the other side of it is that we currently have just come out with an AIA approved webinar based on this information. That is able to be viewed on demand. It's not quite as in-depth, but it definitely has a lot of the information. So it ends up being something where you can go on the website, sign up for it, get a username, password, and go view it at any point. That website is called AIAspec.com. But on the other side, I'll definitely send you a link that has snippets of pieces of this. Looks like I have another one. Yeah, I saw that I had a couple of friends from USG. It's good to have you guys on the phone, or good to have you guys on the webinar. A couple of questions that I get to is that I have a situation where people will ask me about pan decking. Because you have varying depths of concrete, you have a situation where people are questioning two things. One, is a pan deck, an elevated slab in a pan deck, is that drying from one side or drying from two? Based on the ASTM standard, obviously it would be different. If it's drying from one side, you're going to drill in 40% of the slab thickness. If it's drying from two sides, you would only go in 20% of the slab thickness. So first of all, the question becomes, is it drying from one or two sides? With a pan deck, even if it is a vented pan deck, it's not being vented enough to classify it drying from two sides, so it is classified as drying from one side. So you need to go to 40% of the slab thickness. With that, the second question comes up: what is the slab thickness? Is it the thinnest portion or is it the thicker portion? Two ways that it's being done. One, I have people that will actually, and what we recommend is that you actually identify the deepest portions of that pan and drill 40% of those deepest portions. There are some people that are doing what they call effective thickness calculations, where they're taking kind of an average, not quite, but taking kind of an average of them and then drilling anywhere on the slab at 40%. If you try to identify the deepest section, question I get from people is, how do I do that? With a very inexpensive, $60, $70 metal detector that functions much like a stud finder in a wall, it'll actually be able to be placed on the concrete, and you can scan across the concrete, and the actual scan will be strong enough that it will catch the higher sections of metal, but not so strong that it'll catch the deeper sections. So as you scan across, you just mark where the one scan hits, move it over, second scan hits, and then drill right in the middle. I will tell you that as of a couple weeks ago, the ASTM committee got together and kind of looked at the impact of drilling in different areas of the pan deck. The results haven't been released yet, but at least I guess I can say that the committee is looking at trying to give more specific guidance for people out in the field every day. Second thing I always hear about is, how do I know how thick the slab is? If say it's a slab on grade, how do I know how thick the slab is? Obviously there's construction documents, trenching. I always tell people, especially if you haven't had to try to figure out slab thickness, I always tell people that you're going to be surprised once you know that you need to, and you're hypersensitive to it when you go out on the job. You'll be surprised at how many different ways there are. But worst case scenario, there are people that are out there, and quite a few of them, that they're taking smaller diameter drill bits and drill a couple of holes strategically on the slab, or in the slab, all the way through. And you have the ability to then take some pliable wire, make a J-hook out of it, push it down in the hole until it goes out the bottom, pull it up, mark it off, and as you pull it out, you can see where the J-hook or the curve on the J was, and between there and the mark that you made, you have some comparative information to have a good ballpark of what the thickness of the slab is. It's not something where I see nor would I recommend turning the slab into Swiss cheese, but it's something where, taking a couple of comparative measurements in different areas of the building would definitely be something that would be useful. It's something I see that happens quite often. Looks like I have another one on pan deck slabs. Wouldn't the rebar interfere with the finder? Depending on where the rebar is placed, typically it's not going to be placed up quite that high, but you could have the possibility for that. I can tell you that the times that I have done it out on a job, haven't had any issues with it. But again, I'm not saying, they have varying ways of being able to do the concrete in different pan decking. But at the end of the day, hasn't been something that I've had an issue with, or that I've had people come back to me and say that it doesn't work because of that. Again, you could have certain instances where it doesn't, but for the 50 or 60, maybe $70 for the metal detector, you're probably going to find that it's going to be better than not to have it and a lot easier. Okay, well, it looks like that's all the questions I have. If you think of any additional things that you need, questions you forget to come up after the fact, don't hesitate. My name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, and it's extension 235. Thanks, and have a great day.